Hello, welcome to Kirsty Knits and Sews. My name is Kirsty and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about all things knitting and occasionally crochet, spinning, sewing, quilting, other fibre related fun. I am coming to you today from Rzeszów in Poland where I live with my husband and 2 kids. I'm originally Australian but I've moved here about 18 months ago and have no plans to move back to Australia. If you are new here, welcome. I've noticed a lot of new people joining this channel over the last couple of months. Vlogmas, a lot of new people came in January, there were a lot of new people. February, it's continued. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I mentioned this before, I kind of think of this like my craft group, sewing group, knitting group. And so I really appreciate you guys coming back. And on that note, if you want to share with me what you are working on either while you watch this video or what you're currently working on at the moment in your life, I would love to hear because I miss having those little groups where you can get together and have show and tell. So this is my show and tell and I would love for you to talk about what you've been doing in the comments as well. I read every comment, I reply to them as well. I'd love to hear. Okay, so today I have some very exciting things to share with you, including telling you about a new tutorial that's coming out and a giveaway that's connected with that tutorial. I have some finished objects, I have some spinning and even a tiny bit of sewing today. It's been a very full and very fun couple of weeks. If you're new here, I don't usually talk about every single thing that I have currently on the go because that would take days. But I talk about things that have had progress since the last episode. So if there's something that you've seen in the last episode that you don't see here today, that doesn't mean that it's finished. It just means that I haven't really worked on it in the last couple of weeks. And so I kind of feel like there's no point in showing you, maybe one line of knitting or no lines of knitting as the case is sometimes. So let's jump in. I will first say this is a hand knit sweater. It is beautiful. You can see that there's sparkle in there, but I did not knit it. This sweater was a Christmas present from my sister, who is also a big knitter and sewer. And I think it was even a Christmas present before I got into knitting in a big way. So my sister and I have kind of leapfrogged a little bit. She was a much bigger knitter and I was much more into sewing. And we both did both, but primary focus. And then around the time that I really got into sewing, I got into knitting, she opened a sewing shop. And she now works at a sewing shop. She opened a sewing online store for clothes. She now works at a brick and mortar clothes shop where she is a seamstress. And I obviously do a lot more knitting these days. So we've kind of leapfrogged in our life. But I tell you what, it is so lovely to have someone that you can share knitting and sewing and all your crafty funness with. And so yeah, hi Mal, I know she watches this, but yeah, so much fun. So she made this. I couldn't tell you the pattern, I couldn't tell you the yarn. I presume it's acrylic, it's definitely got a sparkle and it looks kind of a worsted weight, may even be an Aran, I'm not sure. It is a drop shoulder. I can tell you some of the design things, but I couldn't tell you anything about how to replicate it. Sorry. I do love it though. Okay, so my tea today is in a sheep mug by Luca. I picked this up from, I don't think it was Valentine MAL. It was a market, maybe it was a market in, a wool market in Warszawa, Warsaw. I'm like, what is the English for Warszawa? Warsaw. It was in Warsaw, the capital of Poland. They had a knitting, crafting market and I was able to go up and I picked up a handmade sheep mug. If I can find the shop, I will link it below. But yeah, I love it. And I'm just drinking Earl Grey cream from Tea Leaves in Sassafras, Victoria, Australia, which is one of my favourites. All right, now for real, let's get into finished objects. I have 2 knitted finished objects and 2, I'm going to call them finished objects, spinning finished objects, but they are sampling things, they're not big spins. So let's get into this. The first one, I finished a Musselburgh. Now this is for my son. It is a child, adult, small, or child. Sorry, it's a child / adult small size. Oh my goodness. Look at those colours. All the lighting in here is 100% natural. I just have the 2 windows open on either side. So hopefully it'll all behave and help. I love, so Musselburgh, if you haven't heard of Musselburgh before, welcome, basically. It is a pattern by Ysolda, who, it's called a gaugeless hat. And so basically the idea is that you just knit in her patterns, in her gaugeless, swatchless patterns. You just start knitting, you cast on and start knitting, and when there's enough of a gap to measure, that's when you measure and figure out what your gauge is. It is an unblocked gauge, but it still works, so go figure. You figure out what your gauge is, and you then figure out how many stitches you need to increase to based on that gauge. So you don't have to do a separate swatch, you just swatch while you're knitting the actual project. It's a very, very popular one. This is a fingering weight hat. And the way that you do it is you just do, like, she has obviously all the pattern details for how to increase and things. It is a paid for pattern on Ravelry. But you knit along, you decrease on the other end. Sorry, just had a delivery. So it is knit as a long tube. She has obviously pattern details. It's a paid for pattern on Ravelry. Ysolda has details on how to increase and decrease and the length that you need to knit it to, but you knit a long tube and then you flip one end inside the other and you can wear it either as a slouchy hat or fold the rim up and have a beanie that way. I love this pattern. I've made one for me. I've made one for my husband. I am in the middle of making a second one for my husband because he asked for a different colour. And I've now made one for my son. I love this pattern. It is so easy to knit, so mindless once you do the increases, and the decreases are very simple. Even the increases, you get into a rhythm, so it's not that bad. I know a lot of people struggle with doing the cast on, which is that invisible cast on type thing. I just don't find it that difficult, so I don't mind doing that. But I love the pattern. It's such an easy knit. It is a delight. And I originally thought, do I really need like a double thickness or, a 4 thickness? Well, let me tell you, it is cold. This morning I walked my son to preschool. I didn't even give him this one. I made him wear his other beanie because I wanted to show you first. But it was like -6 degrees Celsius today when I walked him to preschool. I wore my Musselburgh. My head did not get cold. My face got cold. My head, completely fine. So yes, I definitely appreciate having a double thickness and then 4 layers over the ears. But I also know, like, people in Australia wear this. My brother-in-law, I think, has one, and my sister's making him a second one. So, for a lot of different colds, this is a great pattern. The yarn that I used is one that I actually dyed with my son. So I had heard, for a kids craft tip, my son loved making brown paintings. So you'd give him red, blue and yellow so he could make every colour, and he would just mix them all together and it would be brown. And I saw a tip somewhere that said if you give them 2 primary colours and white, then they can mix them all together and you'll get different shades of colours and different types of colours, but it won't turn into brown. And I thought, that's brilliant. I love colour. Why did I not think of this? So I did that with dye. I got food dye out, so completely kid safe, and a little foam stamper, and it was a sock blank. And so I laid the sock blank out. I had already soaked it in citric acid and water overnight, so it was already wet and prepared to take the dye in. And then I got the food dye out, we stamped it up, he did most of it, and obviously it turned into green because I gave him blue and yellow food dye, but you can see beautiful gradients of green and even quite a bit of blue coming through there. Yeah, it was so much fun. He loved it. I don't have the rest with me, it's in scraps already, but there were like some circles that you could still see on the sock blank as I was knitting up. And so yeah, I absolutely love it. It was so simple an activity for him to do, but he now knows that he helped dye this hat and it's knit up and it's his hat and mummy made it, but he helped. And so this hat will be, I think, one of his favourites for a long time. He's very knitworthy. He's already asked for a rainbow cowl that matches my rainbow cowl I made during Advent. And he last night at bedtime started telling me what kind of quilt he wanted every year for his birthday for the next 5 years. I told him that's not quite how it works. So then he told me in excruciating detail what quilt he wanted for his 5th birthday and make sure that it's big enough that he could use it for the next 5 years. And it has to be soft. I'll probably back it with Minky. Anyway, back to knitting. That's my first finished object. I started this in November. I should also say that. I started this in November. It does not take 3 months to knit a musselberg. Absolutely not. The other one that I cast one on a week ago and it's almost finished. Does not take 3 months to knit a musselberg. I didn't like the needles I was knitting it on. And I spoke about this more in the last episode, so I'm not going to go into it a huge amount now. But I did buy I did this 3mm. Let me just double check that for you. It's a fingering weight yarn. I did it on 3mm needles. And so I really like the gauge that I get. I think I'll do all my musselberg fingering weight on 3mm needles. But I didn't like the needles I was using because the connection was just a bit jiggy and awkward, had a bit of a hitch. So I bought new needles and I bought 3mm 16 inches, I believe. Maybe they were 24 inches. Chiaogu red lace circular. And 2 weeks later, not even, like I finished this a couple of days after the last podcast. So, you know, a week after I bought the needles, the hat was done. I was about here, so like the majority of the hat was knit in about a week. The needles, the tools that we use for crafting are so important. And there are times where I go, oh, but if I just buy the cheaper ones or the ones that, you know are not as good, price doesn't always correspond with not as good. But if I buy the ones that I'm like, I know they're not as good, but they're so much cheaper, I usually regret it. If I buy the ones that I don't know and I'm like, I'll just try it out, I sometimes regret it. Yeah. Anyway, I will say Chiaogu are my favourite needles. I've not tried their interchangeables, but their fixed needles, absolutely hands down my favourite. All right, so that's the first one. The second one I hadn't started last podcast. I have now finished myself some mittens. These are the World's Simplest Mitts by Tin Can Knits. And let me pull my sleeve up here. So simple. I have not blocked these because I wasn't sure I didn't swatch for these. I just did everything according to the pattern. So I wasn't sure what blocking will do. I will eventually at some point wash them. They'll get wet. Yeah, these are my world's simplest mitts. And they are incredibly simple. I've made them for my daughter and for my son. Now that I'm wearing them, I feel like I could have gone a little bit longer in the thumb, which when I was knitting them, I was debating about. But fingers, everything are perfect. And like they're not coming off. I apparently just like a bit of a tighter thing. So I made these basically for when I'm pushing the pram. That's when I'm like, I want mittens. I did it with a DK. This is the leftover yarn. This was a 50 gram ball. So 50 grams has well and truly gotten me a pair in size adult small. And it is Rowan felted tweed. So 50 gram ball. It's a mix of 50% wool, 25% alpaca, 25% viscose. And if you saw last episode, I only bought this like 2 weeks ago. The reason I bought this is there's a sweater that I wanted to make for a friend. And I didn't want to make it with yarn that I'd never used before. And so I wanted to try it out. So I bought some to try it out. And I can say I love knitting with it. I love the fabric that it's made. It's not necessarily what I would pick for mittens, but I would absolutely love to wear this as a sweater. So I figured out all my yardage needs for that sweater. I'm not going to buy it now, but when I'm ready to cast on, I think I will be doing it in Rowan felted tweed. And I am tempted to definitely make a couple of sweaters for myself out of this too. It is lovely. So yeah, that was that one. I haven't actually weighed to see how much yarn that took up, but in my stash stats tracking, anything that is less than 50 grams, I count as scraps, and so I take it out of my stash. Oh, I dropped something. I'm back. Anything less than 50 grams, I take out of my stash, and I just put in scraps. So this one I probably will keep because I am planning to use this color in the sweater that I'm going to make for my friend. But normally something like this, I would just put straight into my DK crochet corner to corner blanket. But like I said, this one I think I will keep. All right. What else do you need to know? I followed the pattern exactly. Oh, you should know, any patterns that I talk about will have details down below. They will have links to my Ravelry pages for these projects. And so there will be links down below. The only things that won't have details are spinning. So let's talk spinning for a second. I am not a spinner. I am learning to spin and I'm loving it. In November, I went to Wrocław, which is another city in Poland on the west side of Poland. And I went to a spinning workshop. Sorry, as I'm saying this, I'm having like Polish and English vying for attention in my head. Like English, speak English. I went to a spinning workshop. It was held in Polish, the entire workshop. And so before I went, I did have a look at some online tutorials for how to spin with a drop spindle, because I knew I wouldn't understand everything that the teacher was saying. And I'm really glad I did. And I picked it up very quickly. Like I don't know what it was, but it was just like I knew how to spin, even though I didn't know how to spin and had never used a drop spindle before. It just came so naturally to me. So I absolutely loved it. And this is the first yarn that I made. I don't know how to do focus. I use my camera phone for all of my things. So focusing may or may not work. Anyway, so this is a 2-ply yarn. Some of these bits, like some of them would, now that it's, what do you need to know? As a not spinner, I don't really know what you need to know. Basically, it's 2-ply. I spun a giant long thing and then I put it into a center pull ball so that I could ply both sides at the same time as it came out. And that worked reasonably well. I got a few knots, but it worked reasonably well. And then once it had, I don't think I let it rest at all. I think you meant to let it rest before you ply it. I didn't let it rest at all. Once I'd plied it, I then let it rest for a bit and I put it in a bath of warm water, just like I would block clothes that I'd knit. And it did kind of plump out a little bit. So some parts of this are still, let me pull this out. Some parts are still like so fine that I would say that would be less than a fingering weight. Some parts are a bit thicker, and I would say that little part would probably be more of a worsted. But most of it, I would say, is about a fingering. Some of it will go into a DK. So maybe all in all it would end up as a sport. It's a very fine yarn for my first hand spin. Very fine. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I would love to have a project that I could do, but I may just keep it as a little skein. It's kind of cute to have a little skein of my first ever hand spun. This one, after I'd finished this, I had about the same amount of this fibre left. So I'd spun that up, and then I got for Christmas some fibre from my mum and dad, from Cat and Sparrow Fighters. Shops that I mentioned I will also link below. I'm just writing myself a note so I remember Cat and Sparrow. And it came with just a little bit of scrub fibre. And so I spun that up and then was deciding what to do with it. And I decided to ply it together with the pink. And part of it was because I wanted to get an idea of what my plies actually look like. Because I knew that like with this one, you can see what the yarn looks like, but it's hard to see what the plying looks like. So this one, you can see the two together and how they're fitting and whether they're sitting flat or not. This is more of a DK worsted. And I didn't, when I was spinning the purpley colour, I deliberately didn't try and make it as thin as I could. I was trying to make it thicker to see if I could spin thicker. And I can, but not consistently. I naturally want to go to a thin. Yeah, so that was really fun and interesting to play with. And again, I don't know what I'm going to do with this yarn. Again, I put it in a bath, let it soak after I plied it up, and then let it dry. So I'm really loving both of these, more because I made them than anything else. Like I don't look at them and go, wow, I love that yarn and I would totally go buy that if I found it in a shop. But I do look at it and go, wow, I can't believe I just made that. So this is my hand spun FOs. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I only have, I think I counted this one. It's about 27 meters. 27. Not much. So I don't know how much this is. I may be able to use them in a project. I may just have them sitting there as some little yarn candy. I think I'd rather not use them unless I knew there was something I wanted to use them in. Another delivery. I'm going to see if my husband's going to get that. He is. Yay. So yeah, there you go. Now I'm going to go into my whips. Now there are quite a few here, and a lot of them I have mentioned on, actually no, a few of them I've mentioned on the last episode, but not many. So the first one that I will show you, and I will show you this quickly, not because I've made a huge amount of progress, but because I'm excited that I've made any progress at all. So this is my, oh, don't come off the end, my 3-season cardigan by Wool and Pine Design. I'm doing this in Malabrigo Rios yarn, which is a worsted weight in the colour Bobby Blue. And when I showed this last, I was down here. So I've done a couple of inches since the last podcast. I absolutely love this collar. I cannot wait to wear this cardigan. The reason I wasn't expecting to make any progress is it's a cabled cardigan and I haven't touched it since September. Like, I don't think I've done anything on it since September. I cast it on a holiday and then put it aside until I had brain space. And I haven't had brain space. But the other day I made a mistake on a cardigan that I will show you in a second. And I was just like, nah, I'm done. I don't want to work on it. And that's when I think cast on and finished the World's Simplest Mittens, and I cast on the Musselberg that I will show you soon. But there was a little bit of, I don't want to cast anything new on, and I don't want to, oh, it's also when I did a lot of spinning. There was a little moment of I don't want to cast anything on. That was another delivery, but I think my husband shut the door. Hang on. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that I picked it up and I did some work on it. Like I said, it's not a huge amount of work, but it was very fun. And I remembered again why I love cables so much. From what I've seen so far, it's a very well written pattern and I am so excited to keep working on it. But again, I've gotten distracted by other things since then. So the next one I have to show you is my tri-gradient shawl. This is a Stephen West pattern. It is a brioche and garter stitch pattern and very simple to do. Well written instructions help, but I find it simple. I am doing it in Happy Sheep Baby Wool and, oh, this one's torn, Happy Sheep Magic Sock Wool. So this one is colour 28 and this one is colour 15. And so this is a long gradient one. This is 100% wool and this is 70% wool, 30% polyamide. 100 gram ball, 50 gram ball. So I've got 4 of these and 2 of these. And this is what I have done so far. Now, the needles themselves aren't very long, but that'll give you a bit of an idea. And on the other side, you get more of the colour. So I really love this because it does kind of make a two-sided shawl that you can choose which colour will go best with your outfit that day. But this is for my husband. I made one for his brother and he loved it so much that I'm making one for him. I will show you this. Here we go. This marker down here is where I was up to last time I showed you. So I had that much done last time and it's grown. Yay! So I'm going to move that marker now so that next time I can show you what kind of progress I've done. This is a really simple knit. It is in my mindless knitting house at the moment, category at the moment. I just haven't worked on it a lot. I was doing a lot of work on it downstairs and I brought it upstairs to work on up here and I haven't really touched it up here. And so I think I'll move it back downstairs. Upstairs, when I'm knitting, I'm usually looking after kids at the same time. And that means I need to be able to put the yarn aside for cuddles when they hurt themselves or for, I need to write something down. Cuddles when they hurt themselves or if they want to climb up and have a cuddle, play on the swing, whatever it is. We have an egg chair that's a swing, so it's a bit fun. And so I find having multiple balls of yarn really stressful when I'm doing that. And for things like brioche, I don't want to stop in the middle of the row with kids around and that kind of thing. I can, but I just prefer not to. So I think I need to move this back downstairs for downstairs knitting and bring something else upstairs. I will say, I haven't been showing them. These bags, I have made all of them. So here's another one. So the tutorial, I don't give sizing measurements for these ones, but if you listen to everything, I think I do actually, for this one, I give some sizing. But yeah, I love bags. All right, this next one is the last whip that you will have seen already. And this one is in a project bag that matches the one I did for the tutorial. I know myself, and I know that if I'm going to make a bag to give away, I'll probably want one for myself. And so I thought when I make the tutorial, I will give away the bag that I make as part of the tutorial, but I will make a matching one for me. But I didn't have the zips, the different colours. I didn't have two of any colours that would go with this bag. And so I just got a different accent colour for each bag. And I love it. All right, this one holds my Heel Toe Dosey Do sock, which is a pattern by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. And this is what I have done. Now I don't remember how much I'd done last time I showed you, but you can see here I've placed markers. I'm going to do an afterthought heel. And so I'm already that much into the foot on the first sock. So this shouldn't take a huge amount of time to finish, to be honest. I think the reason this one has stalled, like I haven't touched it for maybe a week, is because I'm doing them on Addy sock needles. So Addy circular sock needles, which I prefer to a 9-inch circular, but I still don't find 100% relaxing. And I think because I'm doing a pattern with it as well, those two together are making it a little slower. If I was doing a pattern on Magic Loop, I don't think I'd have the same problem. And even DPN, I don't think I'd have the same problem. I think what I'm learning though is if I'm doing a pattern sock, I like Magic Loop. That's probably my preferred for a pattern sock. And then vanilla sock, I'm happy to mix it up. This yarn is called Kirsty. It is named after me. It is dyed by Half Baked Hand Dyed, and this was a prize. She did a giveaway where you could pick 4 numbers and the numbers correlated to colours, and these are the ones that I picked. I did go through her page to find colours that I liked because she had a few numbers and colours combined on her page already. So I had a look at some of her photos and found some colours I liked, searched for the numbers, and put this together. And then everyone voted, and they voted that they liked mine the best. So I love it. It's very exciting to have that. And that just fits beautifully. There's actually still like quite a bit of room in this bag with a ball of sock yarn, a pattern, the needles, the one sock that I've already done. It's a great bag. All right, my next one. This is the project that caused all the trouble. This is in my huge project bag. Now this one, I think I actually was trying to make a project bag about that big and I mismeasured. And so I ended up being huge, but I still use it and it's really good. I did an Aran Way cable sweater that the whole thing, all the yarn I needed, everything fit into this bag. And this one, which has quite a lot of yarn, also fits in. So I have 3 balls of yarn that are this size in this bag, plus a few other bits and bobs. All right, so this is my Duetto cardigan by Violist Knits, is her Instagram name. And she's doing a happy birthday party, a birthday party knit along. I jumped on board because she is doing it in Polish and English. I believe she's going to release them as patterns after the knit along. And last I heard the knit along was still open. So if you wanted to, go in and jump in and cast on this now, you can probably do that. Yes, so this is the Duetto cardigan, and she also has the option for doing a Duetto sweater. And what it is, I'm in the middle of a row, so sorry. This is the front. It's just a cardigan top down with some detailing on the raglan. So all 4 points of raglan have this nice little detail. The one that she's doing is striped, so she's got like kind of cream it to the top and then striping some brighter, deeper colours down the bottom. I am doing this held together with some lace weight, which was in my stash, to get kind of that bit of a brighter orange. And once I finish that, I'm going to move on to a pink one to be held double with a pink lace weight to make it that little bit brighter as well. So I'm going to do, I don't know if I'm technically going to do a fade or whether I'll just swap colours and however it lies, it lies. But that's what I'm doing with this. Now, the third part of the pattern is out and I'm still on the first part. And this is why. I was knitting and I was knitting from the polish pattern. And my plan was to knit from the polish one, and if I got to a point that I didn't understand something, I would flip over to the English one to understand. I was knitting and I got to a part where it's like, go over, like start the next section. And I thought it said you should have 91 stitches on your needle at this point. What it really said was knit this section until you have 91 stitches on the front combined. So this part should have 91 stitches on it and then go to the next part. So of course I didn't do that. I just went to the next part, and as I was knitting the next part, I was like, this just seems wrong. Like it just does not look like a cardigan should look. But I've never actually knit a cardigan, so I was kind of giving the pattern the benefit of the doubt and being like, surely the designer knows best. Well, the designer did know best. I just wasn't reading my Polish properly. So when I finally figured it out, I had knit about this much. I had to rip out 6, 7, 8 inches of knitting. And I like it. I liked knitting this. I'm loving the way that the yarn is knitting up. I'm going to love wearing this, but I just couldn't. At that point, I was like, I just need to put it away and walk away from it. I did obviously start knitting again. I think I did a couple of, yeah, there you go. I've done 3.5 rows since I ripped it out. Yeah. So it went to the naughty corner for a night. I then ripped it out and fixed the mistake, and it went back to the naughty corner until I could handle doing it. Picking it up now, I'm like, I actually really want to work on it. It's so pretty, it's soft. This is Hobby's Winter Glow, which is I think like a 51-49% wool acrylic blend, which I'm not a huge fan of. I bought for something and then decided I didn't really like it for that project. And so when I was like, it's a mystery knit. So I didn't actually know what it looked like when I started either. So I was like, I'll use yarn that I'm not totally in love with, but I get gauge when I hold it with some more scrap yarn or stash yarn. And I am actually just loving it. It's going to be such a lovely, cozy cardigan to wear. Yeah, so I might, now that I've pulled it out to show you, I might have the wherewithal to start knitting on it again. I think the other thing is it's a lot of purling because it's a cardigan. So you knit one way, you purl the other way. I don't mind purling. I still find it reasonably relaxing. But I think I'd been doing it when I wasn't like, I really want to work on this, because I wanted to get to the end of the first step before the second step came out. And when I realized that I'd made a mistake and done all of that wrong, I couldn't. And so I fixed the mistake so that when I do want to pick it up, it's ready to be picked up. But, oh gosh, if you've ever done something like this, you know what it's like. So I just put it away because I'd already been kind of pushing through it a little bit. And then, yeah. Anyway, so I read the English pattern. I understood what I did wrong. In the future, I will still read the Polish first because I want to learn how to knit Polish patterns, or knit from Polish patterns. But yeah, I will be checking before I start knitting, not after, in the future. And this is technically a Christmas bag, but it's the only one I have of this size, so I use it year round. Okay, so like I said, I cast on my knits while that was in the naughty corner. And then I've had a couple of projects that have been sitting there waiting to be cast on because I knew I wanted to knit them. I have the yarn for them. I have the patterns for them. I just haven't started them. One of those is this one, that when that turned into the naughty corner, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start. And this is the muscle bear cap that I was speaking about before. So this is where I'm up to. It is a long tube. This one I'm knitting out of Gabbo wool, fine merino wool. Now this is delightful. It's 100% wool, 100% fine superwash merino wool. They come in 50 gram balls and I got 3 balls, and I either will just have enough according to what the pattern says, or I will be just shy according to what the pattern says, but I've measured and weighed how much I used to do that initial increase, and so I will stop knitting when I get to that point and I'll do the decrease. So it might be slightly shorter, but then it's superwash, it will probably grow anyway. But yeah, so this is the hat. It's black, so there's not a huge amount to show you, but if I can show you the texture, like there's some fluff and stuff on it, but it is a really nice, like it's really nice. It's soft, it's warm. I'm interested to see how well it wears. And it's got a bit of a shine, so even though it's black, I know a lot of people struggle knitting with black, I can still see the stitch definition and everything quite well in this. So my son has asked for a jumper out of this yarn, which I may do, even though it's black. And then I was even considering making my husband a jumper out of this yarn. Like, it is actually a really nice yarn. But anyway, so this one I was kind of hoping to have it done today to show you, but last night, the last few nights, rather than watching TV, my husband and I have been playing board games, which is so much fun. And there's less knitting time when you're playing board games than when you're watching TV. But the 2 nights, not last night, the 2 nights before that, we were playing a board game that I actually had quite a lot of knitting time, and I will show you the next project that I did a lot of during that. But last night we played a different version, which moved a lot quicker because it was a board game that has an app that goes with it. And so I didn't get as much knitting done last night as I, would have liked. But also, it's unlikely I would have knit the entire ball of yarn in one night, so who was I kidding? Yeah, so that's my black muscle bag for my husband. Okay. This next one I spoke about last time as a cast on, but I swapped the yarn for it. So, Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady and Whitney of Moon Glow Yarn Co. are having a knit along at the moment. It's called the Vintage Valentine Make Along, and you can do anything, socks, scarves, shawls, jumpers, anything, so long as you're using either Whitney of Moon Glow Yarn Co.'s yarn or Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady's pattern. You can do both, but you have to use at least one. And so I was like, I'd love to participate. I have a couple of Kay's sock patterns that I have waiting, and it needs to say Valentine's to you. So it doesn't have to be pink, but it needs to say Valentine's to you, whatever that means. So I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I have quite a few of her sock patterns, so I'll probably do that, and I can knit a pair of socks in a month. I don't want to do vanilla sock pattern. I'd like to do a fun pattern and like an actual patterned sock. And so I looked through the patterns I had for her and I found the Rainbow Connection socks. Well, I then pulled some yarn to do them with, and every time I looked at the yarn, I had another sock pattern screaming out to use. And I was like, oh, I'll do it. I may have enough for both. Every time I pulled out the yarn, I was like, I must make Heartsplosion socks out of this. I think it's by Alindria Knits. Heartsplosion socks, they're amazing. And so every time I was like, I'll cast on the Rainbow Connection. I was like, no, Heartsplosion. So I had the Heartsplosion socks in with this yarn, and I had the Rainbow Connection pattern with the other yarn. And I finally just swapped them over, and I'm so glad I did. So this, actually, hang on a second. I have sock blockers. I just hadn't thought to get one out. Luckily, they're right behind me. So now I'm just putting it on. So this is the Rainbow Connection sock by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. This is marking for my toe. I normally will like mark every 10 rows for matching one sock to the next. But since it's a pattern, it told me exactly how many repeats of the pattern to do until I split for the heel, stopped for the heel. I worked the heel and I picked it back up, but I just put that marker there just in case I ever had a question about it. And then I put a marker down here for the toe, because again, I can just count, like, there's striping on the back. It's every purple stripe is another 4 rows. So that's fine. But yeah, I absolutely love this. Like, it's so cool. Now, when I mentioned on my last podcast that I was going to do this sock, I had someone comment that, so in the pattern itself, Kay says it's a slip stitch design or something, and so it kind of cinches in widthwise, and so it's a bit of a tighter fit than a normal sock would be using the same amount of stitches. But I had someone mention that it also got smaller this way, and so it kind of, the whole square cinched in, and so she found that the front of her sock was significantly shorter than the back of her sock. Now, I wasn't sure how I'd go with that, but I really like it, and I realized a lot of the time when I wear socks that I've knit, I think that the front has too much fabric. Like, this part here often gets a bit bunchy, and so I'm like, I've often thought, how do I get the heel to go a little bit wider so that my front for the heel, or like have this heel go longer or something compared to the top. I don't know how to say that. Anyway, this pattern, it's perfect because it is that little bit shorter on the front because of the slip stitch pattern. Like, it fits so beautifully, and it still has a pattern, which means it kind of sits up a little nicer than just a plain stockinette. Like, it's just, plus, like, it's just gorgeous. So you can see the pattern is only on the front of the sock, and if I do this, you can see the pattern a little bit better. Like, it's just stunning. I love it. The other thing is, I was sick, and so I knit this one sock, in less than 48 hours. Like, I've woven in the ends, I haven't trimmed them. Less than 48 hours to do this whole sock. That's nuts. I cast on while I was playing the game with my husband, and I think I got through the cuff and a little bit of that. The next day I was sick, so I like knit all the way down through the heel, and then I did some more while I was playing the game with my husband, and then the next morning I finished the toe. Like, nuts. But yeah, so this is a pattern that I will definitely be doing again. It is not colour work in that you do 2 rows of one colour, 2 rows of another. You're not actually using both in the same row at all. So it's not colour work sock, it is a slip stitch sock. But I just, like, I love it. It was so much fun to do. I love the look. The yarn, I dyed this yarn. So I don't sell yarn, I just dye for fun like I do everything else for fun. So this is the purple and this is the pink. And the purple, because I'm using it for heel strays and cuffs, you can see has had a little bit more used. I think it also might just be wound a little bit better. But yeah. So just both hand dyed, just experimenting to see what things do what. Actually, I love the pink. Like, that is, like, I just love it. And I now want to do the Follow Your Path socks by the Crazy Sock Lady with this as the main colour. And maybe this is heel strays and cuffs, or maybe I'll find like more maroony pink. I don't think I'll do that as part of the Vintage Valentine's make along, but you never know. I might, because this sock took 48 hours. Like I said, it's nuts. Normally, I think last year on average I did about 1 pair of socks every 2 weeks. But this would be like less than a pair of socks. A pair of socks in less than a week. Anyway, so absolutely love it. And I've started, I should show you, I put it away. I started the cuff on the second one, but I then got distracted with the musselberg and seeing if I could finish the musselberg, which I didn't. Oh, right, my daughter has woken up. So let's see if we can finish this or if I'm going to need to pause and finish recording another day. Until she makes herself more known, she usually likes to sit and wake up for a little bit. This is my spinning. Now, this is on a drop spindle, and that means that you hold it from the top and the spindle drops and it twists. This is the fibre that hasn't been spun yet. It is a silk silk alpaca. So it's very fine and fluffy. And I don't know how well you'll see this, but anyway, it's very, very fine. Like it's so fine as a spin. My plan for this, I have 2 bats of 3 different types of things. And my plan is to do a 3-ply spin. So I've got this, I've got like an aqua blue and I've got a multicolour blue. And my plan is to spin them together. The only thing in common is that they all have alpaca in them. So we'll see how that goes. I'm really a newbie. I'm planning to do a sweater quantity spin, and that's not quite a third of 1 bat, and I have 6 bats to spin and then ply. So there's a lot to do, but I'm enjoying it, and we will get there. All right. Yeah, there's not really much more to say about that. That is the Cat and Sparrow fibres that I mentioned before, and I'll link them below because it is beautiful. The next thing is just a touch of sewing from this book, Sunday Morning Quilts. I am making this quilt for my niece. It is called Candy Coated, and I'm making it for her 6th birthday, but instead of doing the full-size quilt, I'm making it a little smaller, a little bit shorter, a little bit narrower, and turning it into a quillo. So it has a pouch on the back that you can then fold up into a cushion, but my grandma made me one, and the pouch was really just for your feet to keep warm while you snuggled up under. Oh, I just dropped these on the ground. So this is what I have done so far. What I'm doing, rather than mixing all the colours in together, I'm doing panels of different colours. So I've done some purple so far, I've done some pink so far, and they will be mixed throughout the quilt. So you'll get some pink and then some purple, and there'll be some blue ones as well. So this one has been actually a really enjoyable one. My machine is right back here, so you can see other bits and pieces on the machine that I'm working on there. And the kids' play area is just right over that way. And so if they're playing in this room, then I can sit down and do a little bit of sewing, or I can sit on the chair and do a little bit of knitting. And I'm available for them when they need me. It works really well. And so I've had quite a bit of time, and because it's scrappy, I'm using scraps. I'm using a little bit of stash for the purple because I don't have much purple that I cut into scrap size, but I'm using scraps for the most part. And so it's been really fun and kind of mindless to do that kind of strip sewing. Yeah, and I have a pattern, so I don't have to do a lot of measuring and figuring out. I just kind of went, cool, that's what I'll do. Yay. So I probably won't show that again, probably until it's finished. My niece's birthday is April 11. So I've got a little bit of time. It does have to get from Poland to Australia, so not a huge amount of time. So maybe by the next episode it'll be finished. But yeah, that's been really fun, and I love sewing, so getting back to the machine has been really lovely. Speaking of sewing. So this is what I said before. I have recorded a tutorial for making a project bag. Now, like I said, this is the same one, same size and everything, just slightly different colour as this one. And you can see there, you've got the ball of yarn, you've got the project, you've got a pattern, all of that is in the bag and it's still quite a lot of room. So if you are interested in making project bags, I promise it's not that scary. Go and check it out. I'll link it below. I've also created a tutorial playlist. It is currently the only tutorial in the tutorial playlist because it's my first tutorial. But go have a look, check it out. I was a sewer before I was a knitter. I learnt to sew when I was like 10 or 11 years old. I guess I learnt to knit about then too. Anyway, I've been sewing and knitting for a long time. As an adult, I sewed a lot more than I knit until maybe 2 years ago. And that's when it switched and my knitting became much more popular or much more of a focus than my sewing. But I still had a lot of pretty fabric and I still like sewing. And so I started making project bags for myself so that I could put my stuff in bags. And like it's so much easier to just kind of grab a handle and carry that around than trying to gather balls and skeins and all those things. And so I watched a lot of tutorials. I watched a lot of how to make bag tutorials and things, how to insert zippers, all sorts of things. And I figured out how to make a bag, and as I've gone, I've just modified it and adapted it according to what I need and what I like. And so what I thought was, I've had a few people say that they like to make project bags or they would want to make project bags and they're not really sure how. And so I was like, I can make a tutorial. Well, let me tell you, tutorials are a lot harder than you think, or at least a lot harder than I thought. It took a lot more thinking and time than I really thought about. But I'm really glad that I made it and I'm happy that it's there. And I'm happy that I can share this with you because if you know how to sew and you want to make some project bags, go ahead. If you don't know how to sew and you want to learn how to make project bags, I think you could probably still learn from this. It doesn't assume a whole lot of sewing knowledge, I don't think. There could be things that I just don't know that I don't know, but I'm pretty sure as a beginner, this would still be a very accessible tutorial for you. There's no pattern needed to go with it. All the information of how to make this size bag is in it. And then I include some notes on modification. Like if you want to make it bigger, the things to think about or be aware of. If you want to make like a 2-tone bag rather than a 1-tone bag or a longer bag, all those kinds of things I include in the tutorial. It is for a zippered bag because that is my go-to, with a handle, which you can obviously leave the handle off if you don't want a handle. But I only leave handles off if I forget to put one on. So this is my one bag that I do not have a handle on because I forgot to put a handle on. And I haven't gone back and thought about whether I want it. I mean, it would be very easy to just cut in here, add a handle, sew it up. But I haven't. But every time I pick up this bag, I'm like, I want a handle. So anyway, it has instructions for the handle, for the zip, for a boxed bottom, which you can see better on this one. You can see boxed bottom just allows things to sit in there nicely. The bag will sit up if it's on the ground. That means that you can have it over your hand while you're knitting. Anyway, it's all in the tutorial. So if you want to make a project bag, if you're interested in knowing what it would take, go check it out. I really love it. But in celebration, I'm also going to do a giveaway. So today I'm going to give away this bag that I made. Like I said earlier, I made 2 so that I could give one away because I knew that I would want to give one away and I want to keep one. So you make 2. This one, it's got the yellow zip, the yellow gingham handle. It has this beautiful blue fabric inside. I think both these fabrics are Laurie Holt. Well, they are both Laurie Holt, but I don't remember what line. I bought them maybe a year ago. So I don't know if you can still get them. Yeah. So if you're interested in making it, go check it out. Like it, save it. But if you want to win this bag, comment down below. And comment... comment project bag. I'm just going to write that down and I'll put it on the screen here so that you can know for sure that you are writing the right thing. And that means when I come back, because not everyone wants a project bag. And like I said before, I'd love to know what you're working on while you're watching and joining in. And so if you are commenting just in general, that's fine. But I don't want to pick someone to win who's like, I actually never use project bags, or I don't want one. I can't use it. I don't have anyone I can give it to. I don't like that color. Whatever it is, if you want to win the project bag, in a comment down the bottom, write project bag. And then when I come to pick a winner at my next podcast, which will be in 2 weeks, it's February 7th today, 2023. So in 2 weeks, that will be February 21st. I will pick the winner on that day. So you've got 2 weeks to write project bag and then comment down below if you want to win. I will also say there's been a lot of bots and things on YouTube at the moment trying to scam people with giveaways. I will personally, on the next episode, announce your name, hold up a piece of paper, write it on the screen, and attempt to say your name for sure on the next episode if you are the winner. So if something decides to make a fake Kirsty Knits and Sews account and comment on your comment below saying, hey, you've won, message me your bank information, ignore it. I will not comment on your comment saying you've won. I will comment on your comment about what you've actually done, but I will not comment on your comment saying you've won. I will announce it on the next episode. So please, 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 if someone creates a fake Kirsty account, ignore them. Okay, but the giveaway, project bag. Yeah, really excited to be sharing this with you guys. It's crazy making a tutorial. Like, I've been sewing for 20 years. So in that sense, it's not strange that I'm making a tutorial. It's kind of strange I haven't done it sooner, but I mean, it's just, I don't know, it just seems strange and exciting and fun. Anyway, go win a bag. And I will ship worldwide. So wherever you are, comment. And yeah. The last thing before I get into life stuff and then wrap up is January stats. So if you've seen my plan video, my stash video, everything, you know that I will be, if you don't, I'll explain quickly now. I have been tracking projects in this knitting journal by, I think it's Hannah May Hansrud, but I could be butchering that name. The Bullet Journal for Knitters. I absolutely love it. February has all of my projects that I'm currently working on or have finished this month, as well as a place to keep track of stash, stats, things like that. So the year I started with 23 kilograms and 79 grams of yarn. I, in January, used 1,222 grams of yarn, and I bought 150 grams of yarn, which means I finished January with 22 kilograms and 6 grams of yarn in my stash. Now that is significantly less than, I mean, that's a kilo that I've stashed down, that I've used in January. Can you hear that? My daughter's waking up. I'll be there in a moment, Elsa, hang on. So that is a kilo that I've used up in January. It feels pretty good, I will say that. 2 of my longest term projects I also finished. So I started January with 10 whips. I finished 6. I cast on 4 new projects, which means that I finished January with 8 whips. Started with 10, finished with 8. But I finished 6 things in January, including my 2 longest term projects, which is just, it's so nice. And then I've cast on 2 things so far in February and finished 1 of them. So, you know, I'm not doing too badly. I am tracking this kind of for fun. I just like to know numbers. I like numbers. I like to know what I'm actually doing and what I'm working on. And I like to be able to finish things. And I don't have enough whips in knitting that it's kind of overwhelming to the point of I don't know what I have. But that's so long as I write it down. If I don't write it down, then I start going, I have bags everywhere and I don't know what's in them. And it does become overwhelming then. So I write it down and I keep track. Just so kind of I feel like I have some control over my knitting. It doesn't necessarily stop me from casting new things on or from buying new yarn if there's yarn that I actually want to buy, but it does help me stop and think about, do I actually want this yarn, or is it just a good price? Is it something that will like be used and utilized, or is it something that will sit in a room and not be looked at for 5 years? It will then bring me guilt that I haven't used it. But it also helps me go, what do I have that I could use to make this thing that I really want to make, rather than going out and buying yarn for new projects when I already have yarn from old projects that I probably won't actually use for that project. So it's just kind of for myself, I like keeping track, but I also think it's fun to share. So that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing where I'm up to. I'm not deliberately trying to finish the year with less stash than what I started with, but I am deliberately trying to use what I have rather than just continuing to add more things without using what I currently have. All right, I'm gonna have to go get my daughter up. I will be back. All right, well, this is Ilse. This is my daughter who's woken up from her nap. I actually got interrupted today. Oh, I will say before I go into this, that is it for knitting things. I will talk a little bit about life stuff and then I will sign off for the day. Yeah, so this is my daughter. She's been a little bit sick, but she just woke up. I got interrupted in the middle of podcasting today, of recording. I had a friend come over, which was lovely, and we had a cup of tea and chatted and caught up. But it did mean that even though it's only been an hour, which is actually not too long for a podcast here, the recording time was over a longer period of time. And so nap time is over and we're going to go back to work and life. But I just wanted to let you know, there were no acquisitions. I didn't buy any yarn things. I did get given this book, which is hilarious, at Knits End, Meditations for Women Who Knit Too Much. Yeah, it's pretty great. It has little quotes by famous people, and then it has like an anecdote by the person who wrote it about that quote that relates to knitting. I laugh out loud so much when I'm reading this book. So if you're ever interested in just a little bit of a lighthearted humour, that's something to think about. Other life stuff, it's not been a huge amount. Like I said, we've been sick a little bit, so some extra knitting time. My throat still isn't 100%, but I don't feel sick anymore. I have had a few breakthroughs with language recently, which is very exciting. I started reading this book, which is Duma I Uprzedzenie de la Młodych Dam. So it's for young girls, young women. And I'm actually understanding quite a bit of it, which is very exciting. Like, it's kind of the Reader's Digest version, if you will. It's simplified language, has a few pictures, but I am understanding it, so that is exciting. I'm still looking up words that I don't know. That will always happen, I'm sure. But yeah, it's really exciting that I'm able to read. And another thing that while I've been podcasting arrived is this book. I now own all of Jane Austen's books in Polish. So this is like a simplified, modified kids version. This is the original kind of version. So this is Opactwo Northanger, which is Northanger Abbey. And only just, like, it was only published even this year, I want to say. Like, it's a very new publication. Oh no, 2021, so it must have been the end of last year. But I now have the complete set. I don't know when I will have good enough Polish to be able to read these ones in Polish, but I do have the complete set of these as well, so I'm excited to read. Yeah, I think that's it. Last stuff here has been pretty... Ilse's currently drawing all over my podcast notes.
Mommy,
That's beautiful, daughter. Well done, Ilse.
look.
You're writing.
Yeah.
Alright, so I think that's everything. Whips, current projects. Remember, if you haven't already, to comment down below project bag if you want to win the project bag. And yeah, I am
Mom.
Well done.
Oh.
Remember to comment project bag down below if you want to win the project bag. And I will see you again in 2 weeks' time. I will draw the winner for the project bag and give you another update on whatever I've worked on. Like I said, please comment down below with what you're working on, because I would love to hear and know what's going on and what other crafting people are crafting. Alright, I will sign off now and I will see you next time. Happy crafting!